Good evening and welcome. We are counting down to counting day. Just hours to go before the ballots are open. We will know who's won the battle for your vote 2014. Over the next 1 hour, we will give you the final forecast according to the post-poll survey done by the India Today Group for Cicero. We will also break this up by regions and look at the north, south, east and west and understand which formation is leading where. I want to introduce our guests, our lead psephologist, Dr. Ashok Lahiri. We've got Dhananjay Joshi with us on this broadcast. Welcome to both of you. Also, Veer Sanghvi, one of India's foremost political commentators, Javed Ansari with us also on this broadcast, senior leader of the Aam Aadmi Party, Dr. Yogender Yadav. We've got Sanjay Jha representing the Congress and we've got Tarun Vijay from the BJP. I want to get straight into the final forecast and I want Dhananjay to explain how the final forecast is different from the original numbers put out on the 12th of May by the India Today Group. And I want to take you through the final seat share numbers that the India Today Group is projecting for the UPA. To begin with, 113 to 125. That's the projection by Cicero for the UPA. After this, the NDA, which is projected to get between 263 to 289 seats and others between 140 to 156. Let's now come to the vote share projections for these formations, starting with the NDA, which is expected to bag 39% of the vote share, a gain of 13% from the 2009 elections. The UPA projected to lose 6% of the vote share, a loss coming down to 27 and others at 34. Dhananjay, explain to our viewers how your final numbers are different from what you put out earlier.
Well, when on the 12th we completed our exit poll, we had projected much lesser for the UPA. We were at 272 and now we have gone up from 272, yeah, for the NDA, sorry, to 276. Now this small shift of 4 seats has come basically from Uttar Pradesh, where in the last phase we see that the BJP has gained much more and the overall vote share for BJP has gone up from 39 in Uttar Pradesh to 40%. On the other hand, in Bihar, although the BJP stays and its coalition stays where it is, the UPA coalition gains over there, and that is what has changed the seat tally by only 2 seats for the UPA in Bihar.
Okay, what we want to do now is take you through the region-wise projection, get a sense of who's losing the most amount of ground where and who's gaining the most where. And I start with the north. In the 135 seats of the north of India, and over here we've included Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. The Congress alliance, which had 70 seats, is now projected to crash to 11. That's a loss of 59 seats for the UPA, whereas the NDA, which had 20 seats, is expected to jump up to 98. That's a gain of 78 seats for the NDA. After the north, let's now come to the south, which has 129 seats, and in the south we've included, of course, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And over here, the UPA, which had 62 seats, is coming down to 34, a loss of 28 seats for the UPA, whereas the NDA hasn't gained much in the south, from 26 to 28. That's a gain of only 2 seats for Narendra Modi. Not very substantial, mind you. Let's now come to the east. In the east, in the 131 seats of the east, the Congress is losing 39 seats from 58 to 19, a loss of 39 seats projected for the Congress in the east of India. Whereas if we were to look, whereas for the NDA, from 52 to 91, that's a gain of 39. Big gain for the NDA in the east. After the east, let's now come to the west of India. And over here, I must explain that Chhattisgarh is also included in the west of India. So the states that have been included are Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. The Congress coming down from 58 to 19, a loss of 39 seats for the Congress, whereas the BJP alliance is going up from 25 to 42, a gain of 17 seats. Dr. Ashok Lahiri, explain the region-wise swing in votes. So clearly, the NDA winning most handsomely in the north and also in the east. In the south, they haven't really been able to gain much traction. That really gives a sense of where the Modi wave exists the most and where it's the least.
Rahul, I don't think we should be surprised by this, because when the election started, or traditionally, the East and the South have never been BJP strongholds. But surprisingly, what the readers or your viewers should know, that if the exit polls are to be believed, BJP is making inroads. Its votes are going up. But in the Indian system, until your votes go up be above 20-25%, they don't convert into seats very much. So the North and the West was the emphasis. This is the Hindi heartland and also Gujarat, Rajasthan, BJP ruled states. So we are not surprised by this, but the gains are really handsome. The gains are really handsome. And what we are seeing is a decimation of the Congress. I mean, losing 59 seats from 70 to 11 in the North is a major loss. It's, as you kept on saying yesterday, it's an existentialist question. And the vote percentages have also come down, according to the opinion poll, in many of the states. For example, Uttar Pradesh. The vote percentages for the Congress is supposed to, or the UPA, is coming down to as much as little as 11%. And 11%, it's really
In fact, let
precarious.
me take the Uttar Pradesh seat share numbers, because that's also where Dhananjay is revising upwards in favor of the NDA. So let's have the Uttar Pradesh seat share numbers coming up, please. Starting with the Congress alliance, which had 26 seats in Uttar Pradesh in 2009. The Congress by itself had 22. That's now expected to crash to 11, a loss of 11 seats for the Congress in Uttar Pradesh. Whereas the BJP, first I'm taking you through the vote share figures. The BJP from 18 to 39,
I
again
think there is a mistake.
of 21.
There is a mistake. Uttar Pradesh, I think Congress is going to get 5.
No, that's not the seat share. So this is the vote share figures. Those are the vote share figures. The BSP from 28 to 19, a loss of 8% of the vote share for the BSP. The Samajwadi Party from 23 to 22, a loss of 1% vote share for the Samajwadi Party. Let's see how this converts into seats, starting with the Congress alliance from 26 seats. And this is where Rahul Gandhi had done very well in 2009. That's now expected to come down to between 4 and 6. A big loss there for the UPA. The BJP from 10 now, Dhananjay is projecting that the BJP will almost definitely cross 50. A psychological barrier. Are you sure, Dhananjay, that tomorrow at 2 p.m. Amit Shah and Narendra Modi can beat their chest and say we crossed 50?
Well, yeah, we are predicting 52 plus minus 4. And, you know, Rahul, the moment a political party in a four-cornered contest crosses 37-38% votes, in a state like UP, getting 50 seats seems to be very plausible. When BJP got 57-58 seats, its vote share was about 37%. So, with 40% projected vote share, probably Amit Shah and Narendra Modi would be very happy with these numbers.
The BSP from 20 seats expected to crash to between 7 and 11. The Samajwadi Party from 23 to between 11 and 14. And the one difference, Dr. Lairi, between your numbers and the numbers put out by the BJPs, they believe that the BSP will be number 2 and the SP will be number 3. So there is a big disagreement between your sense and the BJP's sense of these numbers, sir.
Rahul, we are too close for comfort from when the numbers will come out. I only hope that what we are saying is correct, but you never know. You never know. I won't be too emphatic about who is going to come second, BSP or SP.
Well, there are a couple of reasons why I feel that the BSP is going to be third. First of all, the BSP historically has had what we psephologists call a low multiplier effect, which is to say that the proportion of seats that the BSP gets is generally lower than the proportion of votes, and quite substantially lower than the proportion of votes that it gets. So, and the reason is that the BSP's vote base is spread across the state, and it needs an additional vote bank, right? And it needs an additional vote bank in order to convert votes into seats.
Okay.
Yeah,
we've discussed the numbers.
Yeah, and this time around, I just want to say that BSP could probably be getting the lowest proportion of Jata votes it has ever got.
And that would be very interesting. Are the Jatas moving away from the BSP? Yes, Dr. Lairi.
Just to elaborate on what Dhananjay has just said, look at, for example, Rohilkhand. BSP has got 15%, SP has got 33%. much higher than its statewide average. So SP's vote bank seems to be concentrated in places where it matters.
Doab, Rohilkhand.
Okay, we've spoken of the numbers. I now want to understand what they mean. And I want to go across first to Dr. Yogendra Yadav, an acephalogist in his own right, now here in his capacity as a leader of the Aam Aadmi Party. We will in a moment discuss where the Aam Aadmi Party goes from the 16th of May.
Rahul, it's a pity that Yogendra is not going to come in as a cephalogist as well.
You want to bring him back in his cephalogist cap, Dr. Yadav? Ashok Lahiri says, you know, it's no fun having Yogendra Yadav if you can't talk numbers with him.
Rahul, I often wonder if politicians were to do what media does, how would it be reported? I was told that I'm here to speak about Aam Aadmi Party's future.
Yes.
And I've heard my old colleague and friend Dhananjay, I've heard Ashok Lahiri, both of whom I respect enormously. But if a politician were to do to the media what you did to me, I don't know what would be the headline like.
We are coming to that in just a moment. We are coming to the Aam Aadmi Party in just a moment. But I want your sense, and as I said earlier, that we will chat initially about the national big picture and then immediately come to the Aam Aadmi Party and where it stands in the battle for your vote 2014 and what happens to Kejriwal and his entire team post the 16th of May. But before that, Dr. Yadav, I want to understand from you, if all these numbers were to come to be true, Dr. Lahiri says this is the biggest shift in favor of one party in India's electoral history. Would you call this an electoral miracle? Because you've been disputing a Modi wave. If this were to come true, would you say this is a massive electoral miracle or success story that the BJP has been able to script, Dr. Yadav?
Rahul, what I've said over the last 2 or 3 days is that there is certainly a clear trend. And when all the exit polls point in the same direction, when there is a convergence, obviously there is some substance to it. And there is obviously no point in quarreling with numbers. I've always said that I never understood why politicians quarrel with numbers, especially when the last vote has already been cast. So there is a trend. The question really is, how do you describe it? To call it Modi wave is a misdescription to my mind, because what it does not tell you is what really is happening. I think what really has happened is that the UPA government created a moral, political and governance vacuum in the country. People were not just disappointed, they were so angry that they wanted to vote for anyone but them. And anyone who was visible, anyone who was viable, who appeared to them available, happened to be the BJP. So yes, there is, no wonder the amount of money that went into making BJP visible and appear viable, and Mr. Modi visible, viable and attractive, all that played enormous role. So yes, there is clearly a trend which cuts across the country. The real political question is, what is the trend, how you describe it, how do you understand it? Because unless you understand this trend clearly, you would not be able to see the future direction that it might take.
Okay, Tarun Vijay, Dr. Yogendra Yadav arguing that it's not necessarily a Modi wave, it's Modi filling in a vacuum left by the poor leadership of the Congress party, especially Dr. Manmohan Singh. He's trying to dismiss or underplay the existence of the Modi threat while explaining why the BJP's vote share and seat share is jumping up in the way that it is.
He doesn't even get the sympathies now, because he doesn't see what he doesn't want to see. I remember that even if he wears blinkers, he cannot stop sun to rise. That is the situation today. And I very clearly remember what he was telling us in the last Gujarat Assembly elections. Look at the undercurrents. It's very serious. You may get a very extraordinary results and Modi may not come back. So I remember that Yogendra Yadav ji also. So it doesn't matter, and if he doesn't want to see that sun is rising on the horizon of the India's face, then I mean, God bless him. There is a wave. If there was no wave, then all the media and the people and across the line, across the party lines and ideologies, everyone is talking about one person, one single person who led the elections. It became because of his personality, because of his ideology, because of his commitment and no nonsense leadership. no yielding to any kind of a minoritism, no yielding to any kind of a appeasement. He stood firm on his ideological grounds. Development for all, and no appeasement for anyone.
Okay.
So that made him a hero of the Indians.
Sanjay
No one
Jha,
has even
after the
perceived that
results
after
come out
52,
tomorrow, will we
after
see the
52
Congress still contest the existence of a Modi wave, or will you bow down graciously and accept that because of your leadership vacuum, you created conditions which enabled the creation of a Modi wave? Sanjay Jha.
Rahul, now it's a matter of approximately around 10 hours.
Yes.
And I have been told that I'll be on your channel by tomorrow 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And I agree with Yogendra Yadav completely. Yes, that absolutely no one can quarrel with numbers as long as the numbers are final, accurate, and totally defensible. And you know, I'm sorry if I sound like, we are repeating and appear to be hackneyed, but the truth is, and this is an incontrovertible truth, is that the variance that you've seen in the exit polls of 2004 and 2009 were as high as 30% on the upside and 16% on the downside. So some parties get overestimated, some parties get underestimated. And since, elections is a zero-sum game, a 10-seat loss for one is a 10-seat gain for the other, and the gap narrows by almost 20 seats. So I have a strong feeling that tomorrow you might see a very dramatic change in results, and we remain extremely confident that the BJP is free, and we don't deny them their privilege of making their preparations and celebrations. But it might be premature, because we do believe this is an election that's up in the air, and we should respect the verdict of whatever the people say tomorrow. The Congress party remains confident.
On the first day, after the post-poll results came out, we discussed how Narendra Modi had scripted his electoral success according to the post-poll results. Then yesterday, we looked at Rahul Gandhi, and we looked at where he was weak, where he was weakest, where he was relatively strong. I now want to come to Arvind Kejriwal. And the first question that Cicero asked on the Aam Aadmi Party and on Arvind Kejriwal in this post-poll survey is, was Arvind Kejriwal wrong in bringing down the AAP government in Delhi? 45% of the respondents agree with the fact that Kejriwal was wrong and he shouldn't have brought down the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi. Nationally, there is resounding disapproval of Kejriwal's action. Let's look at the results for Delhi. We've looked at the all India figure. I just want to look at the Delhi numbers also. In Delhi as well, 41% say they agree with the fact that Kejriwal was wrong in bringing down the government in Delhi, while 39% disagree. Veer Sanghvi, this is something that Kejriwal has accepted. But do you think he can recover from this loss, or do you think this one mistake has now eroded the credibility of Kejriwal in the Aam Aadmi Party?
I actually don't agree that it has eroded its credibility. We said when the Delhi election results came out that there were two Aam Aadmi parties. There was the idea of the Aam Aadmi Party of an alternative that had nothing to do with the existing political structure, and there was the physical Aam Aadmi Party, some of which like Yogendra Yadav you could like, some of which like Kumar Vishwas and co you could be less enthusiastic about. As to whether he should have brought down the Delhi government or not, my guess is he had no choice. He was not in politics like Mayawati or Mulayam to rule a particular state. He was there to create some kind of all India movement. He's done that. The very fact that this party was created, what, 2 years ago, and we are sitting over here discussing him in the same breath as Narendra Modi or Rahul Gandhi is unprecedented. So the idea of the Aam Aadmi Party has succeeded. He now is where he wants to be. He's got Narendra Modi as his target. He's going to watch him. He's going to fight him. He's going to look for instances of crony capitalism. He's going to attack him. These 5 years are Kejriwal's years.
You're saying these 5 years are Kejriwal years? I want to go across to Dr. Yogendra Yadav on this, because as we traveled on the Election Express, Dr. Yadav, across the country, we felt that there was a lot of sympathy and goodwill that had been lost because of the antics of the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi, because of the constant dharnas. People felt, okay, here's a party that's good for dharnas, good for opposition, but not suited to be in power. Do you think that impacts the Aam Aadmi Party's fortunes going forward in this national election and be in the assembly elections that happen from here on? Dr. Yadav.
Rahul, allow me to say once again, if a politician were to use figures the way you have used, you would have said these politicians are cheats, they don't even understand what the figures are. Just
Okay, we just seem to have lost Dr. Yadav at that crucial moment when he was making a point. I will put that back line right in just a moment. Till then, let me take you through Kejriwal's stronghold areas and Kejriwal's weak areas, getting a sense of where Arvind Kejriwal has a relatively good chance. This is the all India perception of whether people believe Kejriwal has the makings of a good Prime Minister. Only 4% say yes. 22% said Rahul would make a good Prime Minister, whereas Narendra Modi was leading the pack at 44, way ahead of the others. Let's look at the numbers for Delhi. Kejriwal's approval ratings for the post of Prime Ministership, remember, in Delhi. Narendra Modi at 43, Rahul Gandhi at 20, Arvind Kejriwal at 30, which is roughly the same as their vote share in Delhi. They're actually beating the Congress to emerge as the #2 party in Delhi, and I wonder what that means for the assembly elections. Let's look at Haryana, which is where Dr. Yadav comes from. In Haryana, though, the Aam Aadmi Party hasn't been able to make so much breakthrough, because Arvind Kejriwal is only at 13 in Haryana, Narendra Modi is at 46, Rahul Gandhi is at 25. So Kejriwal really struggling in Haryana. Let's come to Punjab, where Modi is at 50, Rahul Gandhi is at 28, and Kejriwal is at 15. So he's actually doing better in Punjab than he is in Haryana. Then there is Chhattisgarh again. These are the states the Aam Aadmi Party is doing relatively better than it is in other states, where you've got Modi at 50, Rahul Gandhi at 28, and Kejriwal at 13. I want to go across to Javed Ansari on what this essentially means for the assembly elections, which may happen in a few weeks or months from now in Delhi, where the Aam Aadmi Party is still coming in at #2 ahead of the Congress.
Rahul, if I were a political manager of the Congress party, I'd be very worried, because they are, all the votes, all those who voted for Congress because they wanted to defeat the BJP will now gravitate towards the Aam Aadmi Party, because they believe that voting for the Congress might be a waste of time. You might as well go with Aam Aadmi because he's emerged as the main challenger. And it's not just for Delhi. Even in this crucial seat of Varanasi, there's every likelihood that Mr. Kejriwal might emerge #2. And if that indeed does happen, then it will also have its implications in the UP elections whenever they follow, because Kejriwal may not win too many seats this time, but he's certainly made an impact. And I think he's cut more he's damaged the Congress a lot more than he's damaged the BJP.
He's damaged the Congress more, but can he bounce back? Dr. Lahiri, what's your sense by looking at all these numbers in time for the next election in Delhi?
I couldn't agree with Javed more, because what has happened is that there was a speculation earlier that whether Aam Aadmi Party is more injurious for the BJP or for the Congress. And the BJP was saying sometimes that the Aam Aadmi Party is the Congress's B team. But if you recall, its exclusive discourse on morality, on honesty and that kind of issues has made it, it's endeared it to the voters of the Congress. They're not happy with the Congress, but they see the BJP as an alternative. At least there is hope. So I think the Aam Aadmi Party, I wouldn't be surprised if the fight in Delhi is basically a fight between the BJP and Aam Aadmi Party for the assembly election.
Well, yeah, and Rahul, even if you look at our projected vote share, this time round the Aam Aadmi Party has gained 2 percentage points from the last assembly elections. And if you look at it, nearly 75% of people, or was it 70% of people, Dr. Lahiri, in your article, who voted for the Congress last time are voting for the AAP
Correct.
this time round.
Correct.
So the Aam Aadmi Party cannot be discounted, that's one. And the second thing is that, and a professor of political science in Berkeley put it very well, that the Aam Aadmi Party is a Congress party minus corruption, because look at their economic policy. They talk of subsidies, they talk of reservations, they talk of taking care of the poor in a way that the Congress does. So I think the Aam Aadmi Party is a serious threat to the Congress.
Aam Aadmi Party is a Congress without the corruption. Sanjay Jha, does that scare you, that you've been turfed out according to the vote share percentages in Delhi? Delhi is becoming more of a fight between the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party instead of the BJP and the Congress locking horns.
Rahul, I actually cannot but strongly disagree with those kind of statements, because the truth is that Aam Aadmi is a fledgling party with hardly any administrative experience. I mean, we have been in the center for 54 years. We have governed, even today we govern in almost 13 states. So, I think the comparison is extremely misplaced. They're comparing apples and oranges. But the truth is, there's no denying that the AAP party has hurt the Congress wherever, I think not just in the Delhi Assembly, but even we anticipate that their presence will have actually hurt the Congress much more than the BJP. And it's a huge paradox, and I'll tell you why. Because the fact that Mr. Kejriwal is today fighting against Mr. Modi in Varanasi, but the truth is that the BJP actually exploited the entire anti-corruption movement that Anna Hazare and Kejriwal started. They hid their own corruption and made it into an anti-Congress tirade. So the BJP effectively has made huge political capital on the AAP party's earlier avatars anti-corruption movement, and frankly speaking has gained in political terms exponentially. I don't know what the results will be, that is a different issue, but they definitely created huge soundbite, made a lot of propaganda, and made a lot of damage in terms of the they found reason to just throw a lot of mud at the Congress party. Even issues like 2G and coal, which became into a big controversial issues, finally haven't proved to be the numbers that were speculated by CAG.
Tarun
so
Vijay,
I think the Congress has been a victim of certain political
No, but
circumstances.
Tarun Vijay,
and that's the reality.
Given the fact that the Aam Aadmi Party still has a substantial chunk of the vote share in Delhi, I want to build on the argument that Veer Sanghvi made, that they will be Modi's fiercest opposition, that they will be in parliament, whatever number they may get, always keeping an eye on Modi and making an amount of noise completely disproportionate to their real electoral strength. Would that be a concern for Narendra Modi and the BJP, Tarun Vijay?
I agree to only to one extent that they cannot be wished away. But they began very well, and they got 28 seats in Delhi. It was a very good performance because people believe they are simple, they are predictable, they are honest, and they will fight corruption. But what happened? They were exposed too soon. All the anti-nationals who had a different viewpoint on Kashmir, they were soft on the terrorism, they were demanding the plebiscite in Jammu and Kashmir, and getting dollar grant from American agencies in a huge quantity. That exposed them in the eyes of the people who supported them, who trusted them, and they became that this is a party which is unpredictable, untrustworthy. They are doing the vanishing act too soon. At least Congress is predictable. Congress, you can say that about the Congress that they will make a lot of money, but they will not run away from Delhi to here and there, and they will not be having addresses which are never to be found. Once metro, then auto rickshaw, and then Innovas, once one room set, then two room set, then bungalows in Delhi. All these things have done huge harm to the image of Aam Aadmi Party, and I don't see that they can replace Congress.
Tarun Vijay is dismissing the Aam Aadmi Party, but he actually sounds very worried.
Can I come? Yes, Veer wants to come.
Now, I think when we talk about Aam Aadmi Party supporters and Narendra Modi supporters, we talk about monoliths. They're not really monoliths. There's a hardcore of Narendra Modi supporters who will support him regardless. But there are many people who don't necessarily subscribe to Hindutva ideology or whatever, who are voting for him because they have very high expectations of the governance he is going to provide. If he fails, if he can't provide that governance, this is the constituency that will shift. The Aam Aadmi Party similarly has two constituencies. One is the constituency of the television channels and the educated middle class, which has deserted it. The constituency of the urban poor is still with the Aam Aadmi Party. My point is that should Narendra Modi risk losing the middle class, the educated people who want good governance, it's a toss-up where they'll go. Will they go to the Congress given 10 years or at least the last 5 years of misgovernance, or will Kejriwal pick that up?
That's very interesting, because Arvind Kejriwal is literally waiting to snap at the heels of Narendra Modi. That's their game plan, that's what they're working on. Let's move on now and come to the final figures for Bihar, where again there have been some changes, and this time Dhananjay is actually saying that the BJP's seat share might come down from what was originally projected. I start with the Bihar vote share projections. The Congress alliance, which had the Congress from 31% of the vote share, this is the Congress and Lalu both expected to come down to 28, a loss of 3%. The BJP from 21 to 40, a massive gain of 20% vote share for the NDA, that is the LJP of Ramvilas Paswan and the Bharatiya Janata Party. The Janata Dal United from 28 to 19, a loss of 8% of the vote share. And others from 25 to 16. Let's take a look at what this means for seats in Bihar. The Congress alliance from 6 seats to between 13 and 17. That's a big gain for Lalu and for Rahul, and that shows that the alliance is working much better in Bihar than it is in Uttar Pradesh. In Uttar Pradesh, the opposition vote is getting fragmented. That's not helping the so-called opposition parties to Modi, but in Bihar, because of an alliance, they're doing better. Nitish Kumar, though, one of the biggest losers from this election, crashing from 20 to between 1 and 3, others from 0 to 2 to 0 to 1, whereas the BJP is projected to go up from 12 to between 21 and 25. Will this spill over also, Dr. Lahiri, into the Bihar Assembly elections? Will Nitish Kumar be able to recover? Because you're essentially, Dhananjay, pushing the figures for the Janata Dal United even lower than the estimate you came up with earlier.
Right.
Why are you doing that?
Well, the last phase of elections was such that the vote share figures for the UPA alliance have gone up. But it's not only vote share figures, it's the nature of vote, it is the geographical nature of vote. And that is why, in terms of seats, although the BJP stays where it is, it does not gain. And on the other hand, the RJD and Congress alliance immediately gains in terms of seats. But the data points that I was looking at, and which are really interesting, are that now Sushil Modi seems to be more popular than Nitish Kumar for the Chief Minister's job. Our data suggests that Sushil Modi is above 20%, whereas Nitish Kumar is around 17%. So this is a big shift. Nitish Kumar, about 5 years ago, was certainly the most popular Chief Minister that India had. There was nobody who came close to Nitish Kumar. And we have seen this happening in India. Sheila Dikshit, 4 years or 3 years ago, was certainly the most, before the Commonwealth Games, was the most popular chief, one of the most popular chief ministers in India. And after 3 years, she could even not win her own constituency.
Your sense too is that this performance can be replicated in the assembly elections and Sushil Modi could possibly be the next Chief Minister of Bihar? Is that the sense you get as well, sir?
It's a distinct possibility, but let's not forget that a lot of the support for Sushil Modi just now is coming because he's hanging on to Narendra Modi's kurta tails.
True.
Let's see an assembly election where Modi is not a factor, and let's see how that goes.
That's absolutely true, Javed, because assembly election is a whole different ball game. Right now, people realize that Nitish Kumar doesn't have the right caste alliance to back him, but in the assembly election, surely some of the work that he's done in roads, in putting electricity, water, that has to count for something in Bihar, won't it?
If it doesn't, then it's a great tragedy because he's changed the face of Bihar. And if were he given another term, he may, they would have done much, much better than Uttar Pradesh. He would have got them out of the Bihari status. And this brings home the point. I'm really wondering what the Congress was thinking. Why couldn't they stitch a similar alliance in Uttar Pradesh? They had everything to gain and nothing to lose, perhaps their pig-headedness.
That's very interesting, because if there was a secular alliance or a
if there was an alliance with the BSP, today we would have been talking of a different national picture, not just of Uttar Pradesh.
They've actually, that's what I said once, that maybe Narendra Modi should send a thank you note to Benji and to Rahul for not coming together in Uttar Pradesh. That would have made life much tougher.
I can tell you, by the way, why they didn't do it if you're interested.
Why didn't they?
Because in 1996, Narasimha Rao did an alliance with the BSP. He gave the BSP, as part of seat sharing, many traditional Congress seats where there was a strong Dalit presence. Those seats never ever came back to the Congress. Yeah. Every time Rahul Gandhi talks about UP, he regards this as being the crucial mistake. He's certainly not going to make it again. Even if you and I think it's the right thing to do, from his perspective, it's a mistake.
So there's a short-term loss versus a long-term gain. He always has a 20-25-year horizon.
You realize that, yeah.
Sure.
By the time he gets the Congress in order, we'll all be dead, but he'll do it.
20-25 years end.
Possibly. Yeah.
Who knows? Because the bayonet's already
longer
out for him. People already asking for his head. That's a big problem that Rahul Gandhi has to deal with. I want to introduce at this time Shumon Chattopadhyay, our guest in Kolkata. He's listening intently to this broadcast. We are coming, Dada, to the numbers now for West Bengal. And if I can take the West Bengal vote share projections, where once again, Dhananjay is revising the numbers, and this time in favor of the Trinamool Congress. Let's start with the vote share figures for West Bengal. And I start with the Congress in West Bengal first, which from 13.5 is now expected to go to about 14. Can we have the West Bengal numbers on our screen, please? After that, there is the NDA in West Bengal, the BJP, from 6% to 14%, a gain of 8% vote share for the BJP in West Bengal. The Trinamool from 31% to 39%, that's a gain of 8%. 39 is a massive vote share, which is almost like the sort of dominance that the BJP now has in Uttar Pradesh. Left from 43% to 26%, a loss of 17% vote share. That's the BJP there, increasing its vote share quite substantially from 6% to 14%, a gain of 8%. Trinamool up to 39%, a gain of 8% vote share. Left from 43% down to 26%, a loss of 17%. Dhananjay, explain why are you revising your vote share estimates for West Bengal more in favor of the Trinamool?
Well, the last phase was probably a Trinamool belt, and
because they held 14 out of the 17 seats.
Right, right. And this time round again, that's the way Bengal seems to be voting. But Rahul, the point that I want to drive home is that West Bengal seems to be the only case of what Rajni Kothari way back in the 60s called the Congress system, a single party dominance. There's a fragmented opposition. The BJP has still not made it. The left is losing ground election after election. And on the other hand, Mamata Banerjee is succeeding in creating an umbrella coalition like the old Congress. So it's getting votes amongst upper castes, it's getting votes amongst Muslims, it's getting votes amongst Dalits. And it's an umbrella coalition of the classic Congress style. And somehow, even though the BJP is consolidating a lot in UP, in Bihar, but I don't think the old style Congress system can ever become the BJP system.
Tarun Vijay, maybe the BJP oversold this. They kept saying there's a lotus blooming along the Bay of Bengal. Well, maybe there's a small lotus, but it's definitely not blooming and not enough for those votes that you're getting to turn into seats, at least in this election, Tarun Vijay.
8% of gain, and you say lotus is not blooming. We are very happy for on two counts in Bengal. One, the left is continuously losing its vote share. It's a very good and very auspicious sign for the polity in Bengal. Number two, we are gaining continuously. I mean, gaining 8% of vote share in Bengal is no mean achievement, and this is just because of the Modi wave and Modi's leadership in Bengal. You know, we were not as strong in Bengal as we were. Only once we won in Bengal during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, and then it got flattened. We could not retain that kind of a support in Bengal. Now, in East, Northeast, in Arunachal, in Manipur, in Nagaland, you must remember that in Nagaland we were having a coalition government in Nagaland, in assembly. Similarly, we are gaining very high in Meghalaya, in Tripura, in Manipur. So these are the good signatures, and I must remind you one thing, one interview I took with Atal Bihari Vajpayee way back in 1981, and he told me that we need a two-pole system in India, BJP plus Congress minus family. If Congress can come back minus family, and I'm sure that is needed in India, two poles, and because both the parties have a pan-Indian outlook, pan-Indian attitude. That is what India needs on development plank, on an pan-India attitude or pan-India outlook. We need these two poles, but the Congress must get rid of the family. That is the only future path.
Okay, Dr. Lahiri, we're seeing a sharp decline in the vote share of the left. We're seeing a bit of a bump in the vote share of the BJP, not as dramatic as Tarun Vijay suggests, but significant nonetheless. Is this reflective of a longer term possibility where the left front cedes ground to the BJP, because Trinamool is already left of left, or as left as the left? And do you see a possibility of the BJP upping its vote share over a longer term in West Bengal, sir?
I think I would agree with Mr. Tarun Vijay that the BJP should be happy that its vote share has more than doubled. And in the Indian system, you don't start translating votes into seats until you cross 20-21%. So if I were a Trinamool leader or a worker, I would be worried about the potential threat from BJP. But Rahul, allow me to point something out. Bengalis, as I keep saying, are very loyal people. Between 1980 and 2009, the CPM always got more than 33, between 33 and 38% of the votes. Even in 2009, CPM got 33 and Trinamool got 31. So what we are seeing, but that time Trinamool didn't fight in all the seats. It had an alliance with the Congress. So I think what we are seeing is that Trinamool becoming yesterday's CPM. So Trinamool will be there
I
with
want to go across to Shuman
30-35%.
Chattopadhyay and understand if that's his sense also. That Trinamool takes up the space of the left, creating the possibility of BJP over a longer term emerging as the real alternative to the Trinamool. Is that your sense? Do you think this is a time and place phenomena attributed to the Narendra Modi wave and not much else? Shuman Chattopadhyay, sir.
You see, it will be rather premature to say such a thing. You know, I would like to remind Tarun Vijay that in 2001, BJP got almost 12% vote share in West Bengal. So from 12% to 14% is not a very major or quantum jump. The second problem with BJP in Bengal is that they hardly have any organization, nor do they have any credible leadership. So, and also part of votes that BJP got in the state this time can also be attributed to Mamata Banerjee's pandering to the Muslim votes in a way that a section of the Hindus didn't like. So I can't say whether it can be attributed completely to Narendra Modi factor, although it's a fact that he came to Bengal 5 times. Something that we have never seen from a BJP prime ministerial candidate, and he held rallies well spread across the state, and most of his rallies were successful, and he took potshots at Didi and described various problems that Bengal has been facing, including the Sharada scam. So one expected a little more from the BJP, from not 14%, maybe 16, 18%. So until they can cross that threshold, it would be rather premature to call BJP the dark horse or something that they will emerge and challenge the TMC.
Tarun Vijay,
I will also not say
I
that.
agree. I don't agree with Suman's analysis, because of course we had the 12% share, but that share, if he thinks that we retained it and that kind of a share is permanent share, he's mistaken, because that share dwindled and we were down to 6%. Getting back to 14% is a major shift, and we are sure that if Trinamool becomes CPM in every sense of the term, I am afraid, and that's not a good sign for Trinamool. It should not become a CPM of the same Goon Raj and same kind of extremism in social area. But BJP is sure to become an alternative. BJP is sure to provide an alternative government, and the kind of responses and the crowd that Narendra Modi got in every single corner, in North Bengal, in Southern Bengal, in Central Bengal, that was simply amazing even for us. So that gives a hope that BJP is emerging slowly, gradually as a strong contender for an alternative government in
Shuman
West Bengal.
Chattopadhyay, when I spoke to you when the Election Express was in Kolkata, you too had suggested that there was a lotus blooming along the Bay of Bengal. There were projections that the BJP could get between 16-18% of the vote share. The post-poll surveys don't suggest that. Why do you think the buzz that was in the air around the Bay of Bengal didn't translate into votes, let alone seats, for the BJP, sir?
You see, what we saw on the ground was the popularity for Narendra Modi and the kind of turnout in his meetings, and also a large number of people this time saying that they are fed up with everyone else and that they are going to vote for BJP. That was the refrain one heard from Kuch Bihar in the north down to the Bay of Bengal. To what extent it will be translated into vote share was something that was a matter of speculation. But I would like to remind everyone that voting in Bengal should not be compared with anywhere else in this country. Here, as you must have seen on the media, first 2 phases went off peacefully. But from the third phase, it took a different turn, sometimes quite a violent turn, and there were allegations of rigging. There was allegation of compliance by the state bureaucracy, and everybody is shouting horse from the rooftop, the BJP, the Congress, and also the left. But what your projection is showing, that the BJP is gaining at the cost of the left. If you take Panchayat polls as the benchmark and not 2009, because much water has flowed down the Ganges post 2009, In 2011, TMC came to power. In 2013, they faced what is the most important elections in Bengal, which is the Panchayat elections. And they managed to get almost 43% of vote share.
I understand what you're saying. I want to welcome at this time to our program Derek O'Brien, because he's the one man who told me when the Election Express was in Kolkata that all this is overstated. You know, you have your maths wrong, there is no lotus blooming. At that time, the estimate was that the BJP could get between 16 to 18% of the vote share. Cicero is now saying that's roughly at about 14%. So that essentially means that Trinamool has been able to contain the rise of Narendra Modi. But Shumon Chattopadhyay suggests that there were lots of allegations of vote rigging, of the state bureaucracy being compliant. Do you think all these factors also had a role to play in the vote share percentages that are now being projected, Derek, for the Trinamool Congress?
Rahul, I haven't heard anything of your program because there was a satellite problem, but I've heard your question. The Trinamool Congress has done what we believe has done some real great development work in the last 36 months. We believe we've managed to get the message also across and communicate our message about the development work. And we believe that the people of Bengal have come out and voted wholeheartedly, fearlessly, and we are expecting to do well tomorrow.
Yes, you are. But I'm asking you a straight question.
But I don't want to comment on the...
Why is it... Yes.
What is the question?
No, the question is, why do you think Narendra Modi is not doing as well as some of the pre-poll surveys would have suggested? Shumon Chattopadhyay suggests that the state bureaucracy, being wholly on the side of the Trinamool government, had a role to play in this.
See, please understand, these kind of accusations normally come from those who are certain that they're going to lose because in the middle of the match they're going to the referee. So the Congress, the CPM and the BJP will make these little allegations. Why Shumon Chattopadhyay is making these allegations, you have to ask him. I'm not here to get into a debate.
I have not made these allegations. I have said allegations have been made by others.
No, that's fair.
No. I haven't made these allegations.
He said there have been reports.
Fine.
Yes, he says there have been reports, there have been many allegations.
Fair.
He's not saying that he is suggesting it. He says there have been multiple charges that have happened.
I would like to apologize to Shumon because I thought he had made, because I told you the satellite link here was
bad. No, but
bad.
these were exactly the same charges that were leveled against the left front earlier.
Please understand, Rahul, when you know that the ground is slipping from under your feet, you will look for these excuses. People of Bengal have come out and voted, and I want to go on record. I want to go on record on your channel and say today, hello?
Yeah, go on.
Yes, that there must have been out of hundreds and thousands of booths, there would have been 4, 5 single-digit number sporadic incidents. 2 media channels, I don't want to mention the names because of propriety, 2 media channels played it up. By and large, the people came out and voted. I'll tell you why. This is the first Lok Sabha election in Bengal where people got a chance to give a referendum on good work, on development. What has happened? I don't know, I haven't seen your vote share numbers.
39% for the Trinamool.
The BJP, how much?
39.
We will get, our own internal estimate is we are very close to 40%, our own internal estimate. And there's a battle for second spot.
The most optimistic
Congress has gone.
Okay, we're also running.
39 is a fair projection.
Sure, we're also running out of time on this broadcast. Quickly, Derek, yes.
One point. Very quickly. There is no doubt that from the last time the BJP's vote share from a low of 6%, there has to be a growth. Mr. Modi has come and done so many campaigns here. The expectation of the BJP on some polls is showing 6 to 8. I'm a Trinamool spokesperson, so I will tell you they'll get one seat, and that too with the Gorkha alliance.
Okay.
Mr. Shumon Chattopadhyay is an independent journalist. He'll give you his view. All I can tell you is tomorrow we'll wait for the results. No big talk now. No big talk now. We'll wait for the results. This will be a referendum on the development work of the Mamata Banerjee government.
Okay, very
Let's sleep
quickly,
well
I have
tonight.
time only
But
for
we
final
will-
comments, and I want to start with Veer Sanghvi, because in the evening tomorrow, everyone will say, oh, we always knew what was going to happen. So I want you to stick your neck out, sir, and tell our viewers now, what do you think the final NDA UPA numbers are going to be? This is what they will remember, and this is what we'll talk about tomorrow in the evening.
I actually have no idea, Rahul. I mean, I am dependent on pollsters. Dhananjay was reminding me that in 2002 or 2003, when I was editor of the Hindustan Times, we commissioned a survey for the Delhi elections. The survey was carried out by CSDS. It got the results right in that Sheila Dikshit won, but it vastly overestimated the magnitude of a victory. Dhananjay was the guy who did the survey. His boss was Yogendra Yadav. So
Okay,
who knows?
Javed Ansari, you want to be brave? I want to tell our viewers that there's a bet going around in our office. Everyone's put down $1,000 with their number on. Javed, you participated as well. You want to share that with our viewers?
Yes, I'll share it. I don't for a moment doubt that the BJP, Narendra Modi-led BJP NDA will form the next government, but my estimates are rather a bit conservative. I think they'll get something near about
Your estimates are conservative.
230 or 240.
Dr. Lahiri, do you have a number outside of the exit
Yes,
poll
NDA,
number?
230 for
Live
NDA.
by your number.
You guys have to stick
Give
by
us
your numbers, no?
Yes.
They can't have an
They have
alternate
no
number
choice.
after the numbers they've already put out on the
I've
screen.
stuck my neck out 230, give or take
For the
5.
NDA.
For the NDA.
Whole NDA.
Not BJP, for NDA.
Javed,
Rahul,
you'll be
what's
with
your
us on our
number?
channel
Yes,
tomorrow
I'll be
as well.
with
What's
Yes.
your number, Rahul?
No, I'm not. I'm the anchor. I'm the moderator. I'm supposed to moderate all sides and
good
not come out with my
position.
own
But you're
yes.
the only guy here who's traveled all over India. in the
Yes, but I
elections.
don't have a number to
All
put
right,
out for our
okay.
viewers. Definitely not on air. I'm the one who's on no one side, fiercely non-aligned.
yeah.
Yes.
You sound like
I
somebody
was
I know.
very scared that you asked Javed before me because he is always right. But I think today he's half right, half wrong.
We'll know tomorrow, Dr. Lahiri.
Modi will form the government for sure. I
He's
think
not disputing that.
230, that's why he's half right.
Okay.
And half wrong, 230, it will be a precarious government. I don't think it will be a precarious government. I live with the number that India Today Cicero has come out with. It is likely to cross the 272.
272 is the magical figure.
272
276 is what Dhananjay is saying tonight, give or take 11.
Give or take
Who's going to
11.
be more tense tonight? Rahul Gandhi, Narendra Modi or Dhananjay Joshi?
I know I'm going to be really tense. I don't know about
Yeah, I think
the
Rahul
others.
Gandhi and Narendra Modi are resigned to what's going to happen. This poor man is going to not get any sleep tonight.
Okay, I don't know whether anybody is getting much sleep tonight. We'll be back up at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning with all these fine minds, breaking down these numbers, explaining them to you. We've got the live Insta trackpad, which really helps us understand in real time how India voted. Not the opinion polls, not the exit polls, the real deal. That's what you've been waiting for. That's what the build-up over the past 3 months has been for. And it'll all come down 6 a.m. tomorrow when we start Your Vote 2014 with the verdict. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. News and updates continue on the other side. We'll see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning on Headlines 3.